I'd like to open the Monday, April 19, 2021, Leavenworth Board of Zoning Appeals. We do have a quorum. There are 2 members absent. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the March 15, 2021 meeting. Any comments, questions, corrections? Otherwise, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Commissioner?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Minutes approved. No old business, new business. One item, 2021-09, 1008 Quincy Street. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. The applicant is requesting a variance for section 4.04B3 of the adopted development regulation to allow an accessory structure larger than 900 square feet. The proposed accessory structure is going to be located on the northwest corner of the lot. North is this way, up on this picture. The lot is located on 1008 Quincy Street, which is currently zoned high-density single-family residential, R16, with a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure located there on the northeast corner of the lot. The subject property is surrounded by properties also zoned R16, and the properties to the east and the south are zoned multi-family residential, or RMF. The applicant is wanting to build a 1,200 square foot accessory structure with the intent to have an 810 square foot loft to display years of collectibles like toys, signs, cars, motorcycles, G-scale trains and tracks, and other types of collectibles, as well as storage for parts for a 1955 Chevy that will be built in the garage portion. We have received 1 comment from the neighbors located at 1016 Quincy in favor of the variance request.
Okay. Any questions of the staff report? I have a couple. With the basic footprint of 30 by 40 and the second story on there that doesn't look to be a full story, but what is the total square foot for this structure?
Of accessibility, that would be roughly almost 2,010, right? If I do the math right.
That exceeds the square footage of the main residence, based on the tax records. Is there an issue with an accessory structure being larger than the main dwelling unit?
The footprint of it, not the total square footage. Because the total is only going to be 1,200, the footprint of it, and then the space itself.
But there's going to be a second floor that's going to be habitable for the room for the collectibles. So the total square foot of the structure is what I'm looking at. And that's going to exceed the main dwelling unit.
I am looking
I thought it was just the footprint, not the actual usable space exceeding.
No, there's two different matters. One is it exceeds 900 square foot
Correct.
for an accessory structure. But second, since it is going to have a habitable space above it, the total square foot of that structure.
Making it habitable would have to require water and everything else. It's just going to be a loft. It's just going to be.
But still the accessory structure will exceed the square footage of the main dwelling unit. And I didn't think that was possible.
Don't really care. It's parks, whatever. Let's see.
And my second question is, there's already 2 outbuildings, 2 sheds, and I thought you were limited to only 2.
There's currently
accessory.
only one on the property.
No, there's two.
Two metal sheds.
They had told me that I could put two 30 by 30s up without even asking. But to put a 30 by 40, I had to come in front of the council to find out.
Okay,
if I
hold
could-
on.
and
Where's my,
do it.
what happened to my area?
30 by 30.
True, but it's kind of like the structure, the total square footage of that exceeds the main dwelling unit. That's a separate issue from the 900.
I got it.
And then there's also a limitation on the number of accessory structures limited to a piece of property.
Oh,
If
well, it's
everything
taking
goes to
forever to
plan
load.
when I do this, the notch that's in the house that you can see, I'm gonna build a.
Sir, if you're gonna speak, can I have you come up?
Yeah, so we can hear you.
Otherwise, it won't be recorded.
I'm planning on where the patios in the backyard is to add on to, they're gonna put a foundation in there and add a dining room into that area and a bathroom onto the house. It'll more or less square the house out, and it'll stick out about 6 feet past the house on the 10th Avenue side, on the east side.
This is painful. How slow is it?
Will the garage structure be a standalone, or will it be connected somehow to your house? Because it looks like it's going to be very, very close.
The garage itself,
Yes,
no, it won't be attached.
standalone.
Yeah, it stands alone. And then, I think it's 14 by 26 is the area that's added onto it for the dining room.
But the key right now is the number of accessory structures on the lot.
Okay.
Well, this is what he's referring to. The primary use attached and unfinished space shall, yeah, unfinished space shall not be counted. So if since it's just gonna be a loft, not finished.
Okay, second part of that question then, will there be plumbing, bathroom, sinks?
Would it be what?
He asked if there's gonna be plumbing, electrical, if you're gonna,
Yes, there'll be electrical.
Electrical for sure, yeah, I know
Yeah.
that, but a
And then
bathroom
I
or
do
wash
plan on
sinks
putting
or
a
something
bathroom
like
in
that?
there. It's gonna consist of just a toilet and a urinal and a sink.
So there will be a bathroom in this structure.
Right.
Did Kathy mute herself, or did we mute?
I muted her because she had the background noise.
Okay, well, how's she gonna
Comment.
participate if she's muted?
She can,
I can unmute myself.
Okay,
Oh, all right,
all right,
all right,
thanks.
good.
Just looking out for you.
Appreciate you looking out for me,
No problem.
but I don't see screens. I can't see anybody or anything.
oh, yeah. So let me reshare because I didn't want you watching me click everywhere. Okay, so there's that.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is what we see, and they show it as a single structure on this aerial.
But it's not, I've driven around there. It's not, there are two.
Okay, so that does change it. That will trigger either, yeah, an additional variance that would need to be applied for.
Well, it can be included today,
It could, even though they didn't get a notice for it?
even though they will.
Didn't get a notice for it? The notification to the public for it?
We've done that before, they haven't we included an extra variance?
No,
Not
I thought
not
we had.
after the fact. Unless you plan on taking one of them down.
Do what now?
So you have, there in the northeast corner, you have those two sheds.
Yeah.
Those hit your max of allowed accessory structure allowed on a parcel. That's gonna require another variance to allow for the garage unless you plan on taking one of those sheds down.
Okay, well, I can do that, but, well, they told me they were fine. They said they were no problem at all, because they're little.
Yeah, because this aerial shows it as one structure, so that's what we based it on. We didn't realize until now that it's actually two.
Because I
It's
would
just
actually.
two little tin sheds is all it is.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But, well, she took it down
Can I
already.
ask you a question? If I took it down and just made it one shed, would that be worth the thing?
Yes, because it's just two structures
Right.
is the maximum since they're flush and they're their
Yeah,
own.
'cause they're
accessory
built on a
structure.
base, because eventually that's what I planned on doing, was just boxing it in and putting a roof on it, because it's, and I just put the little tin structures on top of it, but it's,
That would be fine.
okay.
Rather than a second variance, we could make the approval contingent upon there only being a maximum of two
Until
accessory
he-
structures, and
he
whatever
creates
you
one.
decide to do after that
We could do that.
would be up to you.
Yeah, because he just mentioned how he
Because
plans on
as
just.
presented, we could not proceed.
Correct. So you could put the contingency that
The approval is contingent upon
him created,
one of the other accessory structures being removed
correct,
prior to the building of this.
correct.
So I have to take one down before we start building this one, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, that's no problem. They're just,
Okay. All right. Any other questions or issues or comments before
I
we?
have a question because I can't hear real well. So I heard part of the discussion about the square footage, in terms of, in relation to the square footage of the house. How is that resolved? Is it bigger than the house?
It's only for those that, the unfinished portion, so the loft, is not gonna be considered towards the square footage of,
No, the garage would not be considered. The loft is a finished space because it will have a bathroom in it.
downstairs is gonna have the bathroom.
Where's the bathroom?
Where's- Downstairs. Anyway, garage, well, there we go again.
Well.
What's
I-
your
I don't know that
definition
you're
of
reading that
unfinished
right.
space?
That's in determining square footage of the primary use, which is the residence. Attached garage and unfinished space isn't counted. That's not talking about the new building.
Yeah, right, that's how to calculate the main dwelling unit. Unfinished space in the main dwelling unit.
So when they're talking about square footage in that accessory use, that would include, I mean, if he had a two-story house, it would count the first floor and the second floor as square footage. It's not just the footprint. Or am I wrong? I just don't know the answer.
doesn't count the basement?
If it's
Part of
unfinished,
me's thinking it does count. I remember,
Cause the
Well, that
intent
did come
is
here.
the intensity of use, so that how large the structure's footprint is in itself. How I interpret it is based on its footprint versus the actual, you know,
Ground coverage?
yeah, I do ground coverage, that's how I read it.
that's not how the tax assessor measures it.
The tax assessor should have a main floor and then,
Finished space. He measures livable finished space, and that's what he taxes. If you go to Leavenworth County GIS site, you can click on the assessment and tell you exactly how much square foot. And it
Anything that we deal with,
looks like the square
anything
foot.
we deal with is exterior, so we just do,
No. I've been on this board a long time. That's not how you calculate it.
well, I I know that there, someplace here has a two-story garage, and I know that was a big issue because it was a two-story garage, and they counted the total square footage versus just the footprint.
Was it an accessory
But-
dwelling?
Yes.
Well, that's the difference because it's a little habitable space, and this isn't. This is just a detached.
So I guess my question is, how big is the house?
Well,
Is
yeah,
that
it
what
was,
you're
it
trying
was
to
a
figure out?
detached garage with. What have you? What section was that?
It's like the.
We really need to go to the tax assessor's office to get the real square footage, because you're not gonna count if that's a garage or anything, you're not gonna count that.
It's on the, it's a link on the Leavenworth County GIS website.
Exactly. It'll tell you.
Nope, that's not what I want. I don't.
The calculated area and main floor living area are the same. They're listed as 1,114 square feet.
1,100
14,
for the home,
yes.
and what was the garage, 2,000?
1,200.
1,200 plus
1,200
800.
and 810 for the loft.
Well, you got that from the county records, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's
yeah,
the number.
that's from that same website I
There. I'm gonna
mentioned.
I'm gonna try to get it.
So 1,100 square foot for the main unit, 1,200 square foot for the garage.
That's the right
And
side.
that only counts one floor. That doesn't count, as you were saying, the footprint. That doesn't count the second story.
Will the garage be a addition space? Will it have heat and air?
Yeah, is it heated?
It'll be heated, air.
Yes, it will.
What we could do is, if the board chooses, approve the concept of a 30 by 40 accessory structure, but make it contingent upon, like, the no more than 2 total accessory structures, and that it meets all the criteria of occupied living space in an accessory structure compared to the main living unit.
I'm not for sure I understand why the request for a building larger than what's allowed by the, what's the rationale? What are we supposed to hang our hat on and to decide?
Well, it does bring up questions. And,
Do they need to add that line since it's a different section that it's referring to?
What section is it?
or we could move to table it and just have it come back once all those questions are resolved. I kind of hate to do that, but There are
Will this
none.
also have to go through a site plan review, Michelle?
As long,
Say that again?
Site
Will it
plan,
also have to go through site plan review?
Yes, to get the permit? Yes, to get the permit,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I was quite concerned about the steep grade that's gonna have to disappear to put that structure back there. What that's gonna do to runoff and that kind of stuff.
yeah, they'll have to pull all that stuff with building inspections and public works.
Okay,
I've already contacted the city about having them look at the alley because there is problems with runoff coming out of the alley into it. And the thing I was gonna do is when I built the garage in is try and put like a curb there. So it kept the water in the alley instead of crossing over into the yard. And Gary Fiverly, who lives just to the west of me, has a lot of water that runs through his yard out of that alley back there.
Works.
Yeah, they're gonna work that. Engineering will work on the grading.
Wait, so it was 404?
B to E. Ask her if we can do a variance without a public notice for that section.
Yes, you can include an additional variance.
Without a notice? Okay. 4.04 B to E. Okay, so this variance is gonna include 4.04 B3 and 4.04 B2, section E, to allow for it to be.
larger than the main structure.
Yes. Correct.
Comments from any board members?
are you saying we're going to include that in this variance?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
How can we do that if it wasn't part of the original application?
It's never been done before, not while I've been on the board.
Yeah, Julie said it doesn't.
I think there should be a public notice if there's another section
I
of variance.
know that we had one, was it a garage also, that we included an additional variance?
Legal requirements won't allow us to add to a variance application. You have to re-advertise in order to meet the requirements for the state statute,
That's,
state enabling
I agree.
legislation. You can't change, you can do lesser, but you can't do more
More,
by
okay.
law.
We did include conditions for approval,
Maybe that's what it was.
but there were no
Additional
additional variances.
I agree with that.
Can we do that though? Doing a condition that require, cause it's gonna be non-conforming based on
What condition could you do?
condition to allow it to be 1,200, or the maximum square footage to exceed 11.
Yeah, and see, we couldn't do that. We
didn't-
could say that it must meet all current zoning regulations.
Yeah, cause I mean,
That's as far as we could go.
So as the application right now, we wouldn't be able to approve it because it's larger than the house, if I'm understanding correctly.
Julie's saying that shouldn't matter.
yeah, I mean, that's what she told me, but
Go back to the development regs just real quick.
No, but it does go back to the comment that Commissioner Bates is what is the original intent of these accessory structures? And I
Exactly.
doubt if it's to build something larger than the main residence.
correct.
Where does it talk about the 15% or something?
50% comes in when you're doing
Oh, that's total coverage of the lot itself.
Okay.
structure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Different.
any impervious surface. It's not something we would consider right now. Because it's this section Do you want to take a picture of this and send it to her?
Yeah.
Okay, you're texting Julie now to get her read on it? Okay.
Really crappy to. 1 second. Am I getting it kinda?
Yeah.
Is it the E?
Yeah, it's all E.
Just gotta totally blow that up. Because the definition of accessory structure is it's supposed to be accessory to the primary.
Correct.
Not
But-
dominant.
Right.
Yeah, and it's based on the verbiage. It says, go down, scroll down. In terming,
What are your
none
thoughts?
unfinished space shall not be counted.
Table? Let 'em-
I don't,
Because
I don't know what,
Well, the very first
What
one
they
is
can do to
subordinate
make
to and serve
it got problems on all sorts of levels.
Yeah,
the subordinate
Right.
area.
which means we don't
See,
disapprove.
so is this
Which
what
means
we're
he
talking
still
about,
has a
Mike?
chance to come back.
My
I'm
2B
sorry.
right there is subordinate and area context or purpose. Right there.
Yeah, it looks subordinate in area. Kind of the purpose of the building. Wouldn't use those terms, but okay. I think it has the same intent. That is my understanding.
For building
Yeah, I would, yeah, I would
is
capture that.
subordinate. Oh, okay, so that's one and the same, okay.
Go to the definitions. And see if accessory structures.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Seaver, you could go ahead and take a seat while I try and figure this out. I did notice that the property just to the west also has a garage that's basically almost exactly the 30 by 40, but it's only one story. And it does not
That's east.
come close to the right, yeah, east, sorry, to the east. It does not exceed the square footage of the primary building. So it's not necessarily the size of the structure too large for the lot. The size of the accessory structure exceeds the main structure.
Well, I want to make a motion to either table this today. I don't see how we can take it up with the size of the building in comparison to the size of the house, because they would need a variance for that. They haven't advertised for that. So I don't know what good it does to move forward on anything.
Well, I think you could proceed with the case, is that you would not approve it for the full 1,200 square feet. You would approve it for however number of square foot that you thought was permissible, under however you interpret this ordinance, because that would be lesser than what the application is, and certainly would be permitted today. They wouldn't have to come back and redo it necessarily if it's going to be something smaller than the 1,200 square feet.
Is that acceptable to the applicant?
The goal, it would have to be under 1,100 square feet.
The garage would have to be under 1,100 square feet.
Well, that's assuming that we're not counting the loft area as a part of the area, the square feet of the building.
And Julie, just to add in, Julie's saying with having to table this, or reduce this, that you can do this and go ahead and make your decision now, because she said they're still not asking for a different change. They're still asking for the 1,200 square feet. She said you can still include the request
You can
because
approve
the
this
request hasn't
case.
changed. Because they aren't asking for something different. So,
Well,
in other
with the
words,
additional information we have gathered, we now have more information than what was presented.
Do we have a definitive answer on whether or not the loft area counts against the building?
My interpretation would be that it does not, but I'm not the planner.
yeah, Julie said that it needs to be part of the variance.
What needs to be part of the variance?
The section E.
How can
What
we-
is section E?
That's the one with the square footage that we determined that me and you are on the same page that it would need a
The
public
footprint.
notice for.
So I think what Julie's saying is because we're not changing the square footage she's asked for, I think that's where she's getting at. Sorry, it's kind of,
But it's-
texting her is kind of hard, I don't know if she's getting.
For calculation purposes, it's only the footprint then.
Or the request.
That's the
the
conversation I
request is
had with
only for
her,
that.
but then still, the question is based on the verbiage for 2E. We would ask her if we would have to come back for 2E. 404B 2E.
And
for
if we do
variance.
that, I would prefer we just table tonight's and get it all done in one action. Commissioner Kim, how do you feel?
Well, I have concerns about 30 by 40 on that lot.
So, that doesn't make any sense then. Cause it's am I on the right property?
Yep.
And what I just measured here, I did ended up being 1,500, all of this.
That back part is a garage? Or what's back there?
The back part's a bedroom.
Bedroom?
That's extended bedroom, that's, in that
And
part,
then,
slot that's in, it's where I want to add on to the house.
Well, that's why I went to the appraiser's report to find out what they say is the square footage. Not,
cause
not
that
measured.
doesn't make any, cause I'm thinking the unfinished is the garage, but the garage is
below.
down here.
Yeah, the only garage it has is that one door going in the basement right now.
So that, I don't think the assessor's is correct. I'm based on my measurements here, unless if I'm off.
What
my
your
figures.
measurement go?
Mine was 1,500.
Oh, well, you have to deduct the garage from it.
The actual appraiser's measurements of the footprint is also on that site. Do you sketch? Down at the bottom?
Oh,
Well, it's top and bottom, but that was closer. Here it is, Ron.
It's 27 times 34, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and then 14 times 14.
Not unless it's finished off. Not unless it's finished off in it. Based on what I saw in the appraiser's thing, it only counted the main living area.
Am I that far off? Because I see how they got it, yes, it's 1114. Because this is how I measured it as well, it was like this. It's saying that I'm 300 off.
You can't use aerial photography for actual measurements.
But 300 square feet off.
Yeah, you could be, the eaves,
The overhangs.
the overhangs,
Yeah.
The years
Just
of
add up.
living,
could add 2 feet
2 feet.
by
And then depending on the angle of the camera.
20, by 20.
I mean, it'll get you in the ballpark, but I'm trying to give him the benefit of the
Right.
doubt.
Okay, well, I'm trying to. So back to Julie. What does she respond for the 2 east portion?
So if I attach the house to the garage, even with a breezeway, it would work, but without one, it wouldn't work.
If you put a breezeway, we make it attached and we would not be here. To be completely honest. Because it would be attached to the house and then it would be considered part of the house. But it would have to be 6 feet from the property lines at that point. You would have to meet the regulations required for the main structure.
So the front face of the garage could match up with the front face of your bedroom there, and then the back end, as long as it was, met the side yard setbacks, you'd be okay, right?
As long as it's attached to the house in some form.
And met all the other, yes, then you wouldn't have to be here.
We were kind of texting back and forth.
And you could leave both of those sheds alone. And you could leave both of those sheds alone, because it wouldn't be another accessory structure.
So would a 30 by 30 with a loft in it be allowed, or is that still too much footage?
If you're counting the loft space, it wouldn't, it'd be over again.
That's probably the key, is
That loft space.
the finished second floor loft.
In most of the jurisdictions I've worked in, seldom for accessory structures do the loft count towards the square footage, it's just the footprint, which is different than the way you would calculate the square footage for a house, of course. But for accessory structures, typically it's just the footprint. Of course, it's not my call, I'm just telling you from my experience.
I would say if it wasn't heated and cooled and electricity, that a definition of loft would be different in this particular case.
Well, it's only the garage that's heated and cooled, and loft is may get what gravity takes up there that I don't plan on.
It's not gonna be a separate
it's got it.
space, it's like a landing.
Furnace with a hood on it, is it laid
With
out to the
windows. I'm just going by the drawing.
Yeah, it can be a
That's
landing,
just a
it's,
picture off of,
it
you
didn't-
could just get a picture off the internet, it was close to what it is.
So it's not gonna look like this?
it can look like that on the outside.
It'll have a barn roof like that on it, but it won't have windows up top, and it'll only have a walk-in door and 2 garage doors. No windows down the side, anything like that.
Yeah.
It's actually gonna be an enclosed building 'cause for security reasons, you know, and you're not in there all the time. You got windows, people break into it and stuff, so I'm putting the 3 3 doors in the front of it, a walk-in door, 2 garage doors, and,
I was just looking at the description of the request, and the applicant is wanting to build a 1,200 square foot accessory with the intent to have 810 square foot loft to display years of collectibles, toys, signs, cars, motorcycles, G-scale train, and track, and other types of collectibles, as well as storage of parts for the 1955 Chevy that will be built in the garage.
okay.
Normally you don't store collectibles in unheated space, because they'll get
She
ruined.
responded.
She did. I'm just waiting on,
Like gravity
confirm.
holes,
No
Okay.
response.
Okay.
dries up or whatever, but I,
so we can proceed with the 2 variances since it's the intent of the same structure.
Okay. That's fine.
I do not feel comfortable with that. Commissioner Kim,
I'm here.
do you feel comfortable with proceeding with the intent of adding an additional variance?
That does what?
So since the intent of the structure is the same and everything, we can include the additional variance since it's not something different. So it's not for another structure or a different intent.
What is the variance?
The variance is
what?
for the square footage being larger, what's being presented. So the variance is for that, it being larger than what's listed as the square footage of the house.
I don't think we can do that legally. No, I'm not comfortable with that. I'll just say that up front. I think the ordinance clearly says it can't be larger than the principal structure. Otherwise, it's the main structure and not the accessory structure. So, no, I'm definitely not comfortable with that.
Okay, so that would be the consideration, so then we can go through making it, we would have to adjust it.
Commissioner Kim, would you be willing to make a motion for us to vote on for that? To table this action until all the issues are resolved?
I'm good with that. I'll make a motion that we table the case until we figure out the issues that we have mentioned, such as whether or not the square footage in the loft is counted towards the square footage of the accessory structure, if an accessory structure can ever be larger than the principal residence on the property. So those are the 2 main ones, I guess. And then if an additional variance would be required, to, even if it's permitted, to allow an accessory structure bigger than the principal structure.
That can be included tonight if you're.
No. She's
I'm
making,
not comfortable.
she is making a
Sure,
motion.
he said.
Okay.
I second that motion. Commissioner Bates?
I third it.
Okay.
All in favor of tabling,
Aye.
say aye.
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 And if I could, one additional comment, I would love to see a scale drawing of how that structure is going to fit on that site. Because I think it's just like going to overwhelm the yard.
well, it's actually 3 feet off of the alley like they required,
But they're gonna wanna see a scale drawing of it.
a scale drawing of it.
And how close it's going to be to the house and that kind of thing, you know?
It's 10 feet away from the house structure. Is it the far east line, it's 30 feet, and it's 30 feet off the alley, and it's 10 feet off of the house.
You already have
Okay.
someone hired to
draw it.
to give you a bid at least on it, that they
Well,
should also
I've got
have a
Pat out
drawing
of
and you can
Lansing
use
Lumber.
that.
He's drawing my blueprints and stuff up for it. And, I had,
That would provide the information she just asked for.
okay. Because I've had, Baker's Construction come out about the foundation and stuff, and we went over, and I showed him what the city had showed me. And, because I could be 3 feet off the fence line and 3 feet off of or 4 feet off the fence line and 3 feet off of the alley, is what they told me, and just go by the measure of the grass, because there was no designated mark for the alley other than the grass line where it went to it.
Once you receive that drawing, you could provide staff a copy of it, so that they could then distribute it to us.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Kemp?
Aye, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Meeting is adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.